Episode 2. The Darkest Hour. Akua had always been the light in every room she entered, vibrant, creative, and full of dreams. Her energy inspired others, her storytelling touched lives. But life, with its unpredictable storms, had a way of dimming even the brightest stars. For Akua, that storm came in waves, disappointments, betrayal, loss, and a crippling sense of failure. What began as a few sleepless nights turned into months of silence and isolation. She withdrew from her friends, her work, and even from herself. Her once busy studio gathered dust, her camera lay unused, and the spark that once fueled her creative soul faded into darkness. She would stare at her reflection and barely recognize the woman she had become, drained, broken, and afraid. It was in that deep valley of despair that Akua hit rock bottom. One night, overwhelmed by her thoughts, she broke down completely. Through tears, she whispered, "I can't do this anymore." And in that moment of weakness came a spark, a realization that she needed help. The next morning, she reached out to a friend who had been calling for weeks. That single act became the beginning of her turnaround. Her loved ones surrounded her with compassion, not judgment. They encouraged her to seek professional help and reminded her that healing was not a sign of weakness, but strength. With trembling courage, Akua began attending counseling sessions. The first few were painful, confronting her fears, unlearning guilt, and facing the truth about her emotional wounds. But as weeks turned into months, she started to see glimmers of progress. The counselor helped her rediscover her self-worth and guided her through forgiveness, not only for others but also for herself. At the same time, Akua joined a small support group for women recovering from emotional burnout. Listening to their stories, she realized she wasn't alone. Every story shared was a reminder that even the strongest people sometimes stumble, but they rise again. In her search for peace, Akua also turned inward, deepening her spiritual life. She began praying more, meditating, and journaling her feelings. Her faith became an anchor, grounding her when old fears tried to resurface. Slowly but surely, she felt herself breathing again, not just existing, but living. Months passed, and something inside her began to change. The laughter returned. The glow on her face reappeared. Her creativity, once buried beneath pain, began to awaken. She picked up her camera again, not to impress anyone, but to express her renewed spirit. Akua started creating content from a place of authenticity, sharing her journey, her struggles, and her small victories. Her words resonated with thousands of followers who found strength in her honesty. Her social media, once silent, became a beacon of hope for others going through their own darkest hour. Through her posts and videos, she reminded people that redemption was possible, that brokenness could birth beauty. The more she shared, the more her confidence grew. She rediscovered her voice, and with it, her purpose. Soon, her impact reached beyond her followers. One afternoon, while checking her emails, she received a message from a well-known creative studio. They had been following her work for months and were deeply moved by her storytelling. They believed she had a rare gift, the ability to blend vulnerability with inspiration, and wanted to collaborate with her on a new campaign focused on resilience and transformation. Akua was stunned. For a moment, she couldn't believe it. The same industry that had once overlooked her now saw her as a beacon of creativity and strength. But this time, she wasn't chasing fame or validation. She knew who she was and what she stood for. When she walked into the studio for the first meeting, she carried herself differently, not as a desperate dreamer, but as a woman who had faced her demons and risen above them. The team saw what she had once lost sight of: potential. Not just the potential to influence others, but to lead, inspire, and redefine what strength looked like. Her collaboration with the studio became more than a professional comeback, it was a symbol of rebirth. Every project she worked on carried traces of her journey, authenticity, empathy, and hope. Her story reminded people that healing takes time, but it is worth every step. Acua's darkest hour had not destroyed her, it had refined her. She had found her voice again, her faith again, and most importantly, herself. And as her light shone brighter than ever, she realized something profound: sometimes you have to lose everything, even yourself, to discover who you truly are. Watch out for episode 3.